The concrete slab came down like God's own hammer, missing Declan Morrissey's skull by 3 inches. The dust cloud that followed tasted like chalk and betrayal, though he wouldn't understand the second flavor until later that evening. He rolled out from under the collapsed section of the riverside tunnel, hard hat cracked down the middle, emergency flashlight spinning circles of light across the debris. 23 years as a structural engineer for the city, and this was the closest he'd come to being buried alive. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd signed off on this very tunnel's safety inspection just 6 months ago. Jesus Christ, Declan. Tommy Fitzpatrick's voice echoed from the entrance. You alive in there? Still breathing, Declan called back, brushing concrete dust from his jacket. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline rush of survival. At 48, he'd learned to recognize the difference. The drive home took longer than usual. Rain had started falling, turning the October evening into a mess of headlights and brake lights. Declan used the time to center himself, the way he always did after a close call. By the time he pulled into the driveway of his modest colonial on Maple Street, the shaking had stopped. The house looked warm and inviting, golden light spilling from the windows. Through the kitchen window, he could see his wife Camille moving around, preparing dinner. After 19 years of marriage, he still felt a small surge of gratitude seeing her there. She'd been working late shifts at the orthopedic hospital more often lately, and these quiet evenings together had become precious. There's the conquering hero, Camille said, as he walked through the door. She was stirring something that smelled like beef stew, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. At 45, she'd kept herself in excellent shape, a requirement, she always said, for 12-hour shifts on her feet. Conquering what? Declan hung his jacket on the hook by the door and loosened his tie. The infrastructure of our fine city. Ava called. She got the promotion at the marketing firm. Senior account manager. Camille's smile was genuine, the kind that had made him fall for her in the first place. She's taking us out to dinner this weekend to celebrate. Their eldest daughter had been struggling to make it in Philadelphia's competitive marketing world. The promotion meant she could finally stop worrying about her mortgage payments, the ones Declan had been quietly supplementing for the past year. That's fantastic news. He meant it. Ava had inherited his work ethic and Camille's social intelligence. What about Isabel? How's freshman year treating her? You know how she is. Calls when she needs money, otherwise we get radio silence. Camille ladled stew into 2 bowls. She's 18, Declan. It's normal. Normal. The word had become their family's unofficial motto. Normal mortgage payments, normal college tuition, normal marriage. Declan had built his entire life around being normal, reliable, steady. It was what had attracted Camille to him in the first place, or so she'd told him on their 3rd date 20 years ago. I almost got crushed by a concrete slab today, he said, settling into his chair at the kitchen table. Camille paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. What? Tunnel inspection. Section collapse. Missed me by inches. He took a bite of stew, savoring the warmth. Makes you think about mortality. Oh my God, Declan. Are you hurt? She reached across the table to touch his hand. Just shaken up. But it got me thinking, maybe we should take that vacation we've been talking about. Costa Rica, remember? The one we saw in that travel magazine. Something flickered across Camille's face. So quickly he almost missed it. Annoyance, frustration. It was gone before he could be sure. We can't afford Costa Rica right now, she said. Not with Ava's situation and Isabel's tuition. We could make it work. Life's short, Camille. Today proved that. Life's also expensive. Her tone had shifted, becoming slightly sharper. Some of us have to be practical. The comment stung, but Declan let it slide. Camille had been working double shifts lately, picking up extra administrative duties at the hospital. She was tired, stressed. He understood. After dinner, they settled into their usual routine. Camille retreated to her home office to catch up on paperwork while Declan channel surfed in the living room. The near-end experience had left him restless, unable to focus on the mindless sitcoms Camille usually enjoyed. He wandered upstairs to check his email, settling into the small desk in their bedroom. Bills, work updates, spam, nothing unusual. He was about to close the laptop when he noticed Camille's phone charging on her nightstand. It was buzzing. Declan had never been a jealous husband. In 19 years of marriage, he'd never once checked Camille's phone or questioned her whereabouts. Trust had been the foundation of their relationship from the beginning. But something about the insistent buzzing made him glance over. The screen lit up with a message notification. Not from her usual phone. This was a second device, smaller and sleeker than her regular iPhone. a phone he'd never seen before. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Room 412 at the Marriott." Declan stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then he sat there in the growing darkness, listening to the sound of his own breathing. 23 years of engineering had taught him to methodically analyze problems. First, gather data. Then, form hypotheses. Finally, test conclusions. The data was limited but clear. Camille had a second phone. Someone named W was meeting her at a hotel room. The timing suggested a pattern: her recent late nights, the extra shifts she'd mentioned. Declan's hands moved with practiced efficiency. He opened his laptop and began searching. Hotel reservations could be traced. Phone records could be subpoenaed. Financial records could be analyzed. But first, he needed more information. He crept downstairs, avoiding the creaky step third from the bottom. Camille's office door was closed, soft light spilling from underneath. He could hear her typing, the sound rhythmic and focused. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it. Inside, he found her regular phone, wallet, and keys. Nothing unusual. But as he started to close the purse, his fingers found something else, a small piece of paper tucked into the side pocket. A hotel receipt. The Marriott, downtown, 3 nights ago. Room 412. Declan photographed the receipt with his phone, then carefully placed it back where he'd found it. His engineering mind was already working through the implications, calculating angles and stresses, points of failure. The next morning, Camille left for work earlier than usual. She kissed him goodbye at the door, the same quick peck she'd given him every morning for 19 years. But this time, Declan noticed things he'd missed before. The way her eyes didn't quite meet his, the slight tremor in her voice when she said she'd be working late again. "Another double shift?" he asked. Dr. Klein scheduled an emergency board meeting. "Budget review?" She adjusted her purse strap, the same purse that had held the hotel receipt. "Don't wait up." After she left, Declan sat at the kitchen table with his coffee and planned his day. He had 3 tunnel inspections scheduled, routine work that would keep his hands busy while his mind processed what he'd discovered. But first, he made a phone call. "Fitzpatrick Investigations," a gravelly voice answered. "Tommy, it's Declan Morrissey. I need to ask you about something." Tommy Fitzpatrick had been Declan's college roommate before becoming a private investigator. They'd stayed in touch over the years, meeting for drinks every few months to complain about the fillies and their aging bodies. "What's going on, Dec?" "Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to verify certain activities, what would be the best approach?" "Hypothetically speaking, you sound like a man who's found something he wishes he hadn't." Declan said nothing. "Meet me at Flanagan's after work," Tommy said. "We'll talk." The day passed in a blur of concrete and measurements. Declan went through the motions of his inspections, but his mind kept returning to the hotel receipt, the mysterious phone, the message from W. By evening, he'd formed a working hypothesis. Camille was having an affair. The evidence was circumstantial, but compelling. The question now was what to do about it. Flanagan's was crowded with the usual after-work crowd: city employees, contractors, a few cops from the local precinct. Declan found Tommy in their usual booth, nursing a beer and reading the sports section. "You look like hell," Tommy said without looking up. "Feel worse." Declan ordered a whiskey, neat. "I need your help." Tommy folded his newspaper and leaned forward. "What kind of help?" Declan told him about the phone, the hotel receipt, the pattern of late nights. Tommy listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making notes on a cocktail napkin. "Dr. Klein," Tommy said when Declan finished. "That's got to be Wesley Klein, head of orthopedics at Riverside General. Divorced about 6 months ago. Messy settlement." "You know him?" "Know of him. His ex-wife hired me to document his assets during the divorce proceedings. Guy's got a reputation for being ambitious." "Ambitious how?" "Let's just say he's not shy about mixing business with pleasure. Hospital administration's been keeping a close eye on him since the divorce." Declan finished his whiskey and ordered another. "I need to know for sure, Tommy. I need evidence." "Evidence for what? Divorce proceedings?" "Maybe. Or maybe I just need to know how deep this goes." Tommy studied his friend's face. "Dec, you're not thinking clearly right now. You're hurt and angry, and that's natural. But don't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that lands you in jail or dead. Trust me on this. Revenge is a luxury most people can't afford." Declan nodded, but his mind was already moving ahead, calculating angles, measuring stresses. Every structure had a breaking point. Every system had vulnerabilities. "I'll be careful," he said. Famous last words. That night, Declan lay in bed listening to Camille's breathing. She'd come home after midnight, sliding into bed quietly and mumbling something about the board meeting running late. In the darkness, he could smell hotel soap on her skin. He waited until her breathing became regular, then carefully extracted himself from the bed. The second phone was still on her nightstand, charging silently. Declan picked it up and scrolled through the messages. The conversation history painted a clear picture. Wesley Klein had been pursuing Camille for months, since shortly after his divorce. The messages progressed from professional courtesy to personal interest to explicit arrangements. Hotel rooms, restaurant reservations, intimate details that made Declan's stomach turn. But it was the tone that hurt most. In the messages, Camille sounded like a different person. Playful, flirtatious, alive in a way she hadn't been with him in years. She called Wesley brilliant and exciting. She complained about her boring home life and her predictable husband. Declan scrolled back through months of messages, documenting everything. Screenshots, timestamps, location data. His engineering mind cataloged it all with mechanical precision, even as his heart shattered. The most recent messages made his blood run cold. Wesley, your husband suspects? Camille. No, he's completely oblivious, probably wouldn't notice if I moved out. Wesley, maybe it's time to make that happen. Camille, not yet. Need to secure the finances first. He's got everything tied up in joint accounts. Wesley, I can help with that. I know people. Camille, let's discuss it tomorrow. Room 412. Declan set the phone down carefully and walked to the bathroom. He splashed cold water on his face and looked at himself in the mirror. The man staring back was a stranger, hollow-eyed, pale, aged years in a single day. His phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. Found something. Meet me tomorrow at lunch. Flanagan's. Declan deleted the message and returned to bed. Camille stirred as he settled back under the covers. You okay? She murmured. Fine, he whispered. Just checking the time. She made a small sound of acknowledgement and rolled away from him. Within minutes, she was asleep again, leaving Declan alone with his thoughts and the weight of what he'd discovered. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Declan went through his morning routine on autopilot. Shower, coffee, kiss goodbye from his cheating wife. At work, he buried himself in reports and calculations, anything to keep his mind occupied. At lunch, he met Tommy at Flanagan's. The bar was less crowded than the night before, mostly city workers grabbing quick meals between shifts. I've got good news and bad news, Tommy said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. The good news is your wife's boyfriend is in trouble. The bad news is he's taking her down with him. Declan opened the envelope. Inside were financial records, hospital documents, and surveillance photos. The pictures showed Camille and Wesley Klein entering and leaving the Marriott on multiple occasions over the past 3 months. Hospital's been investigating Klein for Medicare fraud, Tommy explained. Falsifying surgery records, billing for procedures that never happened. They're building a case against him. What does this have to do with Camille? She's been helping him. Hospital records show she's been accessing patient files she shouldn't have access to, backdating procedure authorizations. If they can prove she's been involved, she's looking at criminal charges. Declan stared at the photos. In one, Camille was laughing at something Wesley had said, her face bright with an expression Declan hadn't seen in years. In another, they were holding hands across a restaurant table, looking like any other couple in love. How long have you known? Tommy asked. 2 days, since I found her second phone. What are you going to do? Declan closed the envelope and met his friend's eyes. I'm going to protect myself. No, Tommy, listen to me. She's been planning to leave me. She's been stealing from the hospital. She's been lying to me for months, maybe years. And I'm supposed to what? Pretend it never happened? I'm saying don't do anything that'll destroy your life too. My life's already destroyed. Declan stood up, envelope in hand. I'm just deciding what to build from the ashes. That afternoon, Declan visited his lawyer. James Morrison had handled the family's legal affairs for years. Wills, real estate transactions, the occasional contract dispute. He was a steady, unflappable man who'd built his practice on discretion and thorough preparation. I need to discuss divorce proceedings, Declan said without preamble. Morrison set down his coffee and reached for a legal pad. I'm sorry to hear that, Declan. What are the grounds? Infidelity, fraud, take your pick. Declan laid out the evidence. The phone records, the hotel receipts, the hospital investigation. Morrison listened carefully, taking notes and asking pointed questions about dates, financial accounts, and potential asset disputes. "This is serious," Morrison said when Declan finished. "If your wife is involved in the Medicare fraud, she could be facing federal charges. That changes everything." "How so?" "Criminal conviction affects spousal support, asset division, everything." "But Declan, you need to be very careful about how you proceed. Any appearance of vigilante justice could backfire badly." "I'm not looking for vigilante justice, I'm looking for actual justice." Morrison nodded slowly. "I'll file the preliminary paperwork, but I want you to promise me something. Don't confront your wife directly. Don't do anything that could be construed as intimidation or maltreatment. Let the legal system work." "Of course," Declan said. But as he left the lawyer's office, his mind was already working through other possibilities. That evening, Camille came home at her usual time, no mention of working late. She seemed relaxed, almost cheerful, as she prepared dinner and talked about her day. "How was your meeting with the contractors?" she asked, seasoning chicken for their dinner. "Productive. We're moving forward with the Riverside project." "That's the tunnel that collapsed?" "Different section. The whole system needs reinforcement." Camille nodded absently, but Declan could see her attention was elsewhere. She kept glancing at her phone, waiting for messages that never came. Wesley Klein was probably busy covering his tracks, preparing for the investigation that was closing in on him. "Camille," Declan said carefully, "is everything okay at work?" "You seem distracted lately." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "Just that you've been working so many extra hours. The board meetings, the administrative duties, it's a lot of pressure." "It's fine. Just busy." She turned back to the stove, but her shoulders were tense. "Why do you ask?" "No reason. I worry about you. That's all." "Well, don't. I can take care of myself." The edge in her voice was new, or maybe Declan was just hearing it clearly for the first time. How long had she been building walls between them? How long had she been planning her escape? After dinner, Camille retreated to her office again. Declan waited an hour, then quietly climbed the stairs to their bedroom. The second phone was there, as usual, but this time it was buzzing with multiple messages. Wesley was panicking. The hospital had called him in for a meeting tomorrow morning. He wanted to see Camille tonight, needed to discuss damage control. The messages were frantic, desperate. Camille's responses were calmer, but equally urgent. She would meet him at the usual place. They needed to get their stories straight. Most importantly, they needed to figure out how to protect themselves. Declan scrolled through the messages, documenting everything. Then he made a decision that would change the trajectory of his life forever. He called Tommy. "I need you to follow them tonight," he said. "Document everything. Video if possible." "Dec, I don't think—" "Tommy, they're meeting to destroy evidence. If we don't act now, they'll cover their tracks and disappear." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done from the beginning. I'm going to tell the truth." An hour later, Declan watched from his bedroom window as Camille left the house. She'd told him she was going to check on her mother, but he knew she was driving to the Marriott to meet her lover and co-conspirator. He waited 10 minutes, then made his first call. "Hospital security, this is Declan Morrissey. I need to report suspected Medicare fraud involving Dr. Wesley Klein and nurse administrator Camille Morrissey." The security director listened carefully as Declan explained what he'd discovered. Financial irregularities, unauthorized access to patient records, systematic billing fraud. He had documentation, he said, evidence that could prove criminal activity. "We'll need you to come in tomorrow morning," the director said. "Bring everything you have." The second call was to the FBI's healthcare fraud tip line. A federal crime required federal investigation. Declan provided the same information, along with details about the conspiracy to destroy evidence. The third call was to Ava. "Dad, what's wrong? It's almost midnight." "I need you to come home, Ava. There's something important we need to discuss." "Is Mom okay? Did something happen?" "Your mother is fine, but our family is about to face some challenges. I need you and your sister to understand what's happening before you hear it from someone else." "You're scaring me, Dad." "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I promise you everything I'm doing is to protect this family. Can you drive down tomorrow?" Yes, I can be there by noon." "Thank you. And Ava, I love you. I need you to remember that, no matter what happens next." The fourth call was to Isabel's dorm room. She was less receptive than her older sister, annoyed at being woken up and suspicious of the late-night family meeting, but she agreed to come home for the weekend. Declan's final call was to his mother. Martha Morrissey had been widowed for 5 years, living alone in the house where Declan had grown up. At 72, she was still sharp, still opinionated, still the moral center of the family's universe. Declan, what's wrong? Mom, I need to tell you something about Camille. He explained everything, the affair, the fraud, the lies. Martha listened in silence, occasionally asking pointed questions that revealed how much she'd suspected over the years. I never trusted her, Martha said when he finished. Too smooth, too charming. Your father always said pretty words were like fresh paint. They covered up the rot underneath. I loved her, Mom. I still love her. Love isn't enough, son. Not when there's betrayal involved. What are you going to do? What Dad would have done. I'm going to fight for what's right. Good. And Declan? Yes? Don't let her take the girls from you. They're going to be confused, angry. They might blame you for breaking up the family, but blood is thicker than water, and truth is stronger than lies. Declan hung up and sat in the dark kitchen, waiting for Camille to come home. Tommy had texted updates throughout the evening. Surveillance photos of Camille and Wesley entering the hotel. Timestamps that would be crucial evidence in the coming legal proceedings. Camille returned at 2 a.m., slipping into the house quietly and tiptoeing upstairs. She undressed in the bathroom and slid into bed, probably thinking Declan was asleep. How's your mother? He asked quietly. What? Camille went rigid beside him. You said you were checking on your mother. How is she? Oh, she's fine. Just needed help with her computer. At midnight? She's a night owl, you know that? Declan knew no such thing. Camille's mother went to bed at 9 o'clock every night and had for as long as he'd known her. But he didn't challenge the lie. There would be time for truth tomorrow. Good night, Camille. Good night? Neither of them slept much. The morning brought gray skies and the first frost of the season. Declan made coffee and toast, going through the motions of normalcy while his wife showered and dressed for work. I might be late again tonight, she said, adjusting her hair in the hallway mirror. The Klein situation is getting complicated. I'm sure it is. Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that workplace complications tend to get messy. She stared at him for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and keys. I'll call you later. After she left, Declan drove to the hospital. The security director was waiting in his office, along with the hospital's chief legal counsel and an FBI agent who'd been assigned to the Medicare fraud investigation. Mr. Morrissey, the FBI agent said, we understand you have information about fraudulent billing practices. For the next 3 hours, Declan laid out everything he'd discovered. The unauthorized access to patient records, the falsified procedure codes, the systematic billing fraud that had been going on for months. He provided copies of the phone records, financial documents, and surveillance photos Tommy had taken. This is substantial evidence, the legal counsel said. We'll need to act quickly before they destroy any remaining documentation. What happens now? Declan asked. We execute search warrants, the FBI agent said. Computers, phones, financial records. We'll probably make arrests within the week. What about my wife? That depends on the extent of her involvement. If she was just following orders, she might face disciplinary action. If she was an active participant in the fraud, she's looking at federal charges. Declan nodded and stood to leave. There's something else you should know. They're meeting regularly to coordinate their activities. Hotel room 412 at the downtown Marriott. Tonight, probably around 8 o'clock. The FBI agent made a note. We'll have surveillance in place. Declan left the hospital and drove home to wait for his daughters. Eva arrived first, her usual confidence replaced by obvious worry. Dad, what's going on? You sounded terrible on the phone. Sit down, sweetheart. We need to talk. Isabel arrived an hour later, still in her college sweatshirt and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. At 18, she'd developed the selective hearing and defensive attitude that came with freshman year independence. This better be important, she said, dropping her backpack by the door. I've got a paper due Monday. It's important, Declan said. Sit down. He told them everything. The affair, the fraud, the investigation. Ava listened with growing horror, asking questions and trying to understand the implications. Isabel sat in stony silence, her face revealing nothing. So, you're divorcing Mom, Ava said when he finished. Yes, because she cheated on you. Because she betrayed our family in every way possible. This is BS, Isabel said suddenly. You're destroying our family because you're jealous. I'm not destroying anything, Isabel. Your mother did that when she chose to lie and steal and cheat. Maybe she wouldn't have cheated if you weren't so boring. The words hit Declan like a physical blow. Ava gasped, but Isabel continued, her voice gaining strength and cruelty. You think you're so noble, but you're just a coward. Mom deserves better than spending her life with someone who can't even afford to take her on vacation. Isabel, stop, Ava said. No, I won't stop. Dad, you're pathetic. You sit there with your spreadsheets and your boring job, and you wonder why Mom looked for excitement somewhere else. You drove her away. Declan felt something cold settle in his chest. I see. And now you're trying to destroy her career because you can't handle the fact that she found someone better than you. Someone better, Declan repeated. Someone who steals from sick people. You don't know what really happened. You're just making assumptions. I have evidence, Isabel. Documented proof. Then you're a sick person for spying on your own wife. Eva tried to intervene, but Isabel was on a roll. Her 18-year-old righteousness and college freshman confidence combining into something cruel and cutting. You know what, Dad? I'm glad Mom found someone who appreciates her. She's been miserable with you for years. We all saw it. We, Mom, me, Eva, even Grandma Martha, we all talked about how you were holding her back, how she deserved better. Grandma Martha even suggested Mom should look for someone who could make her happy. Declan felt the world shift beneath his feet. Grandma Martha said that. She said marriage was about finding joy, not just settling for security. She said Mom should experiment, see what else was out there. The room fell silent. Ava was staring at her sister in horror, but Declan was processing the deeper betrayal. His own mother had encouraged his wife's affair. I see, he said quietly. And what did you tell your mother when she asked for this advice? I told her to go for it, Isabel said defiantly. I told her life was too short to waste on someone who couldn't make her happy. And you, Eva? Ava's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know she was married to someone else. I thought she was just unhappy. But you encouraged her to leave me. I encouraged her to find happiness. I didn't know she was committing crimes. Declan stood up slowly, his body feeling heavy and old. I want both of you to leave. Dad? Ava started. No, you've made your positions very clear. You think I'm boring and pathetic. You think your mother deserves better than me. You encouraged her to find that somewhere else. His voice was calm, almost conversational. So now, you can live with the consequences of that advice. What do you mean? Isabel asked, some of her defiance wavering. I mean you're on your own. No more mortgage help for you, Ava. No more tuition payments for you, Isabel. You want to support your mother's choices? You can support yourselves. You can't do that, Isabel said. I can do exactly that. I've already called the bank. Ava's mortgage supplement stops immediately. Isabel, your next semester's tuition is due in January. You'll need to find your own funding. That's not fair, Ava said, tears starting to fall. We're your daughters. You're your mother's daughters, Declan corrected. You've made that abundantly clear. Now you can choose which parent you want to live with. Dad, please, Ava said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... You meant every word, both of you, and that's fine. But don't expect me to pay for the privilege of being insulted and betrayed. Isabel's face had gone pale. You're really going to destroy our family over this? I didn't destroy our family. Your mother did. I'm just deciding who gets to pick up the pieces. He walked to the front door and opened it. I want you both out of my house. You can stay with your mother or your grandmother or your precious Dr. Klein. But you can't stay here. Eva was crying openly now. Daddy, please, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. You understood perfectly. You just didn't think there would be consequences. But I need help with the mortgage. I can't afford... Then you'll lose the house. Or you can ask your mother to help you. She's been planning to leave me anyway, right? She must have been setting aside money for her new life. Isabel stood up, her jaw set with teenage stubbornness. Fine, we don't need you anyway. Mom's going to be so much happier without you. I'm sure she will be. From her prison cell. She's not going to prison. You're just trying to scare us. Federal Medicare fraud carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years. Wire fraud adds another 5. Conspiracy charges add another 5. Your mother is looking at 15 years minimum, assuming she cooperates with the investigation. The color drained from Isabel's face. You're lying. I'm an engineer, sweetheart. I don't lie about facts. Eva was sobbing now. Dad, please. Can't we work this out? Can't we be a family? We were a family, then you all decided I wasn't good enough. Now you get to live with that decision. He stood by the open door, waiting. After a long moment, Ava gathered her purse and keys, still crying. Isabel followed, her face set in an expression of defiant hatred. I'll never forgive you for this, she said as she passed him. I'll never forgive you either, Declan replied. So we're even? He closed the door behind them and walked to the kitchen window. He watched as they argued beside Eva's car, probably trying to decide where to go. Finally, they drove away together, leaving Declan alone in the house he'd bought for his family. He poured himself a drink and sat at the kitchen table, processing what had happened. In the space of 24 hours, he'd lost his wife, his daughters, and his mother. But for the first time in years, he felt completely clear about what he needed to do. His phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. FBI arrested Klein at the hotel. Camille in custody. Call me. Declan deleted the message and poured another drink. Then he called his lawyer. Morrison, it's Declan. I need you to accelerate the divorce proceedings. And I need you to remove my daughters from my will. Declan, are you sure about this? You're going through a traumatic... I'm sure. They've made their choice. Now I'm making mine. What about your mother? What about her? Are you going to tell her what happened? Declan considered this. Yes, but not tonight. Tonight I'm going to sit in my house and enjoy the quiet. For the first time in months, Declan felt peace. The waiting was over. The pretending was over. The marriage was over. The war was just beginning. The next morning brought news coverage of the arrests. Dr. Wesley Klein and nurse administrator Camille Morrissey had been charged with conspiracy to commit Medicare fraud, wire fraud, and theft of government funds. The local news ran their mugshots, Klein looking haggard and desperate, Camille looking shocked and disbelieving. Declan's phone rang constantly. Reporters, neighbors, co-workers, family friends. He ignored them all. Instead, he drove to his mother's house. Martha Morrissey was waiting for him, having seen the news coverage. She opened the door before he could knock, her face grave and guilty. I heard, she said simply. Did you? Declan stepped inside, noting how small and frail his mother looked. Did you hear that your advice to my wife has resulted in federal charges? Martha closed the door and walked to her kitchen. I never told her to commit crimes. But you told her to find someone else. You told her to experiment. You encouraged her to betray her marriage vows. I told her to find happiness. At my expense. Martha turned to face him, her chin raised in defiance despite her obvious guilt. You were making her miserable, Declan. She came to me crying, saying she felt trapped, saying she needed more than what you were giving her. So you told her to have an affair. I told her to consider her options. Marriage isn't a prison sentence. It's a commitment, a promise, something you and Dad taught me to honor. Your father and I had passion, Declan. We had fire. You and Camille had routine. The words cut deep because they contained a grain of truth. Declan had built his marriage on stability, reliability, trust. He'd thought those were virtues. So my daughters knew about this. They knew you were encouraging their mother to leave me. Martha's face crumpled slightly. They were worried about both of you. The girls love you, Declan. Funny way of showing it. They called me boring, pathetic, said Camille deserved better. They're young. They don't understand. They understand perfectly. Just like you do. Declan moved toward the door. I want you to know that your advice has destroyed our family. Camille is facing 15 years in federal prison. Ava's going to lose her house. Isabel will have to drop out of college. And I'm filing for divorce. Declan, wait. No, Mom. I'm done waiting. I'm done being the steady, reliable, boring one. I'm done being taken for granted. What are you going to do? Declan paused at the door. I'm going to rebuild my life without any of you. He left his mother's house and drove to the courthouse. The divorce papers were ready for filing, along with restraining orders that would prevent Camille from accessing their joint accounts or returning to the house. The judge will want to schedule a hearing, Morrison explained. But given the criminal charges, this should be straightforward. You'll get the house, the retirement accounts, everything. What about spousal support? Criminal conviction eliminates her claim to alimony. She'll be lucky to avoid complete financial ruin. Declan signed the papers and walked out into the crisp autumn air. His phone buzzed with another call from Eva, but he sent it to voicemail. He was done being manipulated by tears and apologies. Instead, he drove to Tommy's office. You look like a man with a plan, Tommy said, pouring coffee from a pot that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. I need more information about Wesley Klein. The guy's finished, Deck. Career over, medical license suspended, facing federal charges. What more do you want? I want to know how deep this goes. Who else was involved? What other secrets he's hiding? Tommy leaned back in his chair. You want revenge? I want justice. Same thing sometimes. Klein destroyed my marriage. He corrupted my wife. He stole from sick people. And he's probably going to plea bargain his way to a lighter sentence while Camille takes the fall. What do you want me to find? Everything. His finances, his other relationships, his medical history, his family connections. Everything that could be used against him. That's going to be expensive. I can afford it. Declan pulled out his checkbook. I've got 19 years of marriage savings and no family to spend it on. Tommy took the check and nodded. I'll have a full report by the end of the week. Declan's phone rang as he left Tommy's office. This time it was his lawyer. Declan, we have a problem. Camille made bail. She's been released pending trial. Where is she? We don't know. She's not allowed to contact you directly because of the restraining order, but she's legally free to move around the city. What about the house? Still protected. She can't go within 500 feet of the property. Declan felt a cold satisfaction. Camille was discovering what it felt like to be homeless, cut off from her support system, facing an uncertain future. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. See. He deleted the message without responding. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, financial arrangements, and paperwork. Declan moved through it all with mechanical precision, settling his affairs and preparing for the next phase of his life. He returned to work, ignoring the stares and whispered conversations of his coworkers. The story had made the local news, and everyone knew about his wife's arrest. But Declan found he didn't care about their opinions or their pity. On Thursday morning, Tommy called with his report. Klein's broke, Tommy said without preamble. Divorce settlement wiped him out. Legal fees are destroying what's left. He's been borrowing money from some very unsavory people. What kind of people? The kind who break legs when loans don't get repaid. Klein owes about $50,000 to a guy named Vincent Torino, small-time loan shark who operates out of South Philly. Interesting. Gets better. Klein's been selling prescription pills on the side. Oxycodone, mostly, using his medical access to feed street dealers. How long? At least 2 years. Maybe longer. Does Camille know about this? Hard to say, but some of the pill transactions were processed through the hospital's billing system. If she was helping with the Medicare fraud, she might have seen the prescription irregularities. Declan processed this information. Pill dealing carried much heavier penalties than fraud. If Klein was dealing, and if Camille knew about it, her legal situation was about to get much worse. There's something else, Tommy said. Klein's medical license. He's had 3 malpractice suits in the past 5 years. Hospital's been covering for him, settling out of court. What kind of malpractice? Botched surgeries, mostly. One patient died from complications after Klein operated while allegedly intoxicated. Family got a big settlement. Klein got a slap on the wrist. Declan felt his anger crystallizing into something harder and more focused. Wesley Klein wasn't just a homewrecker and a thief. He was a butcher who'd been protected by the system. I want copies of everything, Declan said. What are you planning? I'm planning to make sure justice gets served. That evening, Declan sat in his empty house and made a series of phone calls. The first was to the DEA's prescription pill misuse hotline. He provided detailed information about Klein's pill dealing operation, including dates, amounts, and the names of dealers he'd identified from Tommy's report. The second call was to the state medical board. He reported Klein's history of malpractice, the pattern of cover-ups, and the hospital's failure to discipline a dangerous doctor. The third call was to Vincent Torino's social club in South Philadelphia. Yeah? A gravelly voice answered. I have information about Dr. Wesley Klein. Who is this? Someone who thinks Klein needs to face his responsibilities. There was a long pause. What kind of information? The kind that might help you collect your money. Klein's hiding assets. I know where they are. You wearing a wire? I'm a structural engineer, not a cop. I just want Klein to pay for what he's done. Meet me tomorrow night, Tony's bar on Passyunk, 9 o'clock. How will I know you? I'll know you. The line went dead. Declan spent the rest of the evening planning his next moves. Klein was about to discover that destroying a family had consequences beyond legal proceedings. The next day brought more unwelcome news. Ava had called in sick to work and was apparently hiding out at a friend's apartment, unable to face her coworkers after the news coverage. Isabel had dropped out of her classes and was staying with Camille's sister in New Jersey. His daughters were suffering, and part of Declan felt guilty about that. But a larger part of him remembered their words, their casual cruelty, their assumption that he would always be there to clean up their messes. At 9 o'clock that evening, Declan walked into Tony's bar. It was a narrow, smoky place with cheap beer and expensive silence. Vincent Torino was exactly what Declan had expected. Short, thick, wearing a tracksuit that had seen better decades. "You, the engineer?" Torino asked, gesturing to an empty chair. "That's me. What do you know about Klein?" Declan laid out Klein's financial situation, the divorce settlement, the hidden accounts, the property transfers designed to shield assets from creditors. Torino listened carefully, occasionally asking pointed questions that revealed a sharp understanding of money and leverage. "Why are you telling me this?" Torino asked when Declan finished. "Klein destroyed my family. I want him to face consequences. Legal consequences ain't enough?" "Legal consequences don't cover pain and suffering." Torino smiled, showing teeth that had seen too many fights. "I like you, engineer. You got balls. Most people, they just whine to lawyers. I'm not most people." "No, you ain't." Torino finished his beer and stood up. "Klein's gonna pay what he owes, one way or another. Thanks for the information." As Declan left the bar, he felt a dark satisfaction. Klein was about to learn that actions had consequences, and some debts couldn't be discharged through bankruptcy. Over the weekend, the news got worse for Klein and Camille. The DEA raided Klein's apartment and found evidence of prescription pill trafficking. Additional federal charges were filed, carrying mandatory minimum sentences that would put both of them away for decades. Camille's lawyer called Morrison with a plea deal offer. She would testify against Klein in exchange for reduced charges and a shorter sentence. "What do you want me to tell them?" Morrison asked. "Tell them I don't care what she does," Declan said. "She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them." "Declan, she's still your wife. She's my soon-to-be ex-wife and a federal criminal. I have no interest in her legal strategy." That afternoon, Declan received a visit from Eva. She looked terrible. Pale, thin, her usual confidence completely shattered. "Dad, please," she said when he opened the door. "Can we talk?" "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I'm losing everything. The bank's foreclosing on my house. I might lose my job. I need help." "You chose your side, Eva. You called me pathetic and boring. You said your mother deserved better than me. I was wrong. I was stupid and wrong, and I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't pay your mortgage." Ava started crying again, the kind of hopeless sobbing that came from genuine desperation. "Dad, I don't know what to do. I don't have anyone else to turn to. You have your mother. Mom's in jail. She can't help anyone. Then you have Grandma Martha. She's the one who encouraged this whole situation. Grandma's broke too. Social Security barely covers her rent." Declan felt a moment of wavering, the old instinct to protect and provide reasserting itself. But then he remembered Eva's words, her casual dismissal of his worth, her encouragement of her mother's betrayal. "I'm sorry you're in this situation," he said, "but you helped create it. You encouraged your mother to destroy our family. Now you get to experience the consequences. But I'm your daughter. You're Camille's daughter. You chose her side, remember?" Eva's face crumpled. "Dad, please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll testify against Mom. Anything. Just please don't abandon me." "I'm not abandoning you. I'm letting you experience independence." "Isn't that what you wanted? For your mother to be free from her boring, pathetic husband?" "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant. You just didn't think it would cost you anything." Declan closed the door and walked back to his kitchen. Through the window, he could see Eva sitting in her car, sobbing into her phone, probably calling Isabel or Camille's sister or anyone who might offer help. But Declan was done being the family's emergency fund. He'd spent 19 years providing stability and support, only to be told he wasn't good enough. Now his wife and daughters were learning what life looked like without his steady, reliable, boring presence. His phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. Klein got beat up in jail. Broken ribs, concussion. Word is, Vincent's people got to him. Declan deleted the message and poured himself a drink. Justice was being served, one way or another. The following week brought the preliminary hearing for Klein and Camille's case. Declan attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom and watching as his wife shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. She looked older, smaller, defeated. When her eyes met his across the courtroom, he saw desperation and pleading. But Declan felt nothing except cold satisfaction. The prosecutor laid out the charges: Medicare fraud, wire fraud, prescription pill trafficking, conspiracy, money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming. Phone records, financial documents, surveillance footage, witness testimony. Klein's lawyer argued for reduced bail, citing his client's medical condition after the jail attack. The judge was unsympathetic. "Doctor, Klein stands accused of stealing from sick people and dealing pills," the judge said. Bail is denied. Camille's lawyer made a similar argument, emphasizing her cooperation with the investigation and her status as a first-time offender. The judge set bail at $500,000, money that didn't exist. As the defendants were led away, Camille turned to look at Declan one more time. Her mouth formed the word please, but he simply stared back with empty eyes. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to interview him. Declan ignored their questions and walked to his car. The story was simple enough. Trusted professionals had betrayed their oaths and stolen from vulnerable people. There was nothing more to add. That evening, Eva called again. "Dad, I saw the news coverage. Mom looked terrible." "Your mother is a federal criminal awaiting trial. How did you expect her to look?" "She's still my mother. And your wife." "She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to betray our marriage. And she stopped being your mother when she chose her own selfish desires over her family's welfare." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Declan's voice rose slightly. "Was it fair when she spent months lying to me? Was it fair when she stole from sick people? Was it fair when you told me I was pathetic and boring?" "I didn't mean—" "You meant every word, just like your mother meant every lie she told me. Just like Grandma Martha meant every word of encouragement she gave to your mother's affair." "We're your family." "No, Eva, you were my family. Now you're strangers who happen to share my last name." He hung up and blocked her number. The next few weeks passed quietly. Declan returned to his normal routine: work, home, solitary dinners, peaceful evenings without drama or lies. He discovered that he actually enjoyed the silence, the predictability, the absence of emotional manipulation. Tommy provided regular updates on Klein's situation. The doctor had been transferred to protective custody after a second attack, but his legal position was hopeless. The pill trafficking charges alone carried a 20-year minimum sentence. Camille's situation was slightly better. Her cooperation with the prosecution had earned her consideration for a reduced sentence, but she was still looking at 5 to 7 years in federal prison. More importantly for Declan, the divorce proceedings were moving smoothly. With Camille unable to contest the filing and facing criminal conviction, the court was prepared to grant Declan everything he'd asked for: the house, the savings, the retirement accounts, even Camille's car and personal property. In December, 3 months after the arrests, Declan received an unexpected visitor. Vincent Torino stood on his front porch, wearing the same tracksuit and the same carnivory smile. "Engineer," Torino said. "Got a minute?" "What do you want?" "To thank you. Klein paid up. With interest." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. But hypothetically speaking, if someone had provided information that helped collect a debt, that someone might be entitled to a finder's fee." Torino handed Declan an envelope. Hypothetically, inside was $5,000 in cash. "I can't accept this," Declan said. "Sure you can. Think of it as compensation for services rendered, or a Christmas bonus, or whatever helps you sleep at night." Torino started to leave, then turned back. "You know, engineer, you got a talent for this kind of work. If you ever get tired of inspecting tunnels, give me a call." Declan closed the door and stared at the money. It represented everything he'd never wanted to become: vengeful, calculating, willing to use violence by proxy. But it also represented justice served when the legal system moved too slowly. He put the money in his safe and tried not to think about what it meant. Christmas arrived without celebration. Declan spent the day alone, reading and watching old movies. Ava and Isabel had sent cards, awkward, desperate attempts at reconciliation that went unanswered. His mother called, her voice thin and uncertain. "Declan, it's Christmas." "I'm aware." "Are you coming for dinner?" "No." "Son, this has gone on long enough. We're family. We make mistakes, but we forgive each other." "Some mistakes can't be forgiven, Mom. Some betrayals are too deep. I never meant for any of this to happen." But you did mean to encourage my wife to have an affair. You did mean to undermine my marriage. You did mean to turn my daughters against me." Martha was crying now. I thought she was unhappy. I thought she needed more excitement in her life. She had excitement. She had love, security, loyalty, commitment. She had a family. But that wasn't enough for her. And it wasn't enough for you. What can I do to make this right? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He hung up and turned off his phone. In January, the plea bargains were finalized. Klein pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a 25-year sentence. He would be eligible for parole in 15 years, assuming he survived that long in federal prison. Camille pled guilty to fraud and conspiracy charges in exchange for a 7-year sentence. She would likely serve 5 years with good behavior. The divorce was finalized the same week. Declan walked out of the courthouse as a free man, legally and financially independent, tied to no one and responsible for no one except himself. That evening, he drove to the Riverside Tunnel, where his ordeal had begun 6 months earlier. The section that had collapsed had been repaired and reinforced. The tunnel was stronger now, more resistant to the stresses that had caused the original failure. Declan understood the metaphor. Sometimes structures needed to collapse completely before they could be rebuilt properly. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dad, it's Eva. I got your number from Uncle Mike. I'm sorry for everything. I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know that losing you has been the worst part of this whole nightmare. I love you." Declan stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to respond, to rebuild something from the wreckage of their relationship. But a larger part of him remembered the casual cruelty, the entitled expectation that he would always be there to fix their problems. He deleted the message and drove home to his empty house. Spring arrived with new construction projects and the promise of longer days. Declan had settled into his new routine: work, solitary dinners, evening walks, weekend projects around the house. He'd lost 30 pounds and gained a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Tommy stopped by one evening with news. "Klein's dead," he said without preamble. "What?" "Found him in his cell this morning. Apparent self-destruction. Bedsheet noose." Declan felt nothing except mild curiosity. "Any note?" "Nothing official, but word is he couldn't handle the prospect of 25 years inside." "What about Camille?" "Still serving her time. Model prisoner, apparently. Could be out in 4 years." Declan nodded and offered Tommy a beer. They sat on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. "You ever regret it?" Tommy asked. "The way things turned out?" "Regret what? Telling the truth? Refusing to be taken advantage of? Standing up for myself? Cutting off your family?" Declan considered this. "They cut me off first, Tommy. I just made it official. And if Eva or Isabel came to you tomorrow, genuinely sorry, wanting to rebuild, then they'd discover that some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt." Tommy nodded and finished his beer. "You've changed, Dec. You're harder now. I'm more honest now. I spent 48 years being what other people wanted me to be. Steady, reliable, forgiving. It nearly destroyed me. And now I'm what I choose to be, and I choose not to be anyone's safety net." As summer turned to fall, Declan received word that his mother had died. Heart attack, quick and painless according to the doctor. The funeral was small. A few church friends, some distant relatives, Eva and Isabel looking lost and alone. Declan watched from across the cemetery, far enough away to avoid conversation but close enough to pay his respects. When the service ended, Ava started walking toward him, but he was already gone, disappearing into the crowd of mourners. Martha's will left everything to her granddaughters. The house, her savings, her personal effects. It wasn't much, but it was something. Declan felt no resentment about being excluded. His mother had made her choice, just as he'd made his. 2 years after the arrests, Declan received a letter from Camille. It had been forwarded through Morrison's office since she didn't have his current address. "Declan, I know you probably won't read this, but I need to try. I've had 2 years to think about what I did to you, to us, to our family. There are no excuses. I was selfish, cruel, and stupid. I threw away 19 years of marriage for a few months of excitement. I know I destroyed everything. I know the girls blame me for losing you. I know I ruined their lives as much as I ruined ours. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was betraying you. Wesley is dead. I suppose you heard. He couldn't face the consequences of what we'd done. I think about that every day, how our selfishness led to so much destruction. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now what I had, what I threw away. You were the best man I ever knew, and I was too stupid to appreciate it. The girls ask about you sometimes. They're struggling, but they're surviving. Eva lost her house but found a smaller apartment. Isabel finished college on loans and grants. They both regret what they said to you. They both love you. I'll be released next year. I don't know where I'll go or what I'll do. I just know that I'll spend the rest of my life regretting what I did to you. I love you. I always loved you. Camille Declan read the letter twice, then fed it into his paper shredder. Love without loyalty was just words. Regret without consequences was just sentiment. He poured himself a drink and sat on his back porch, watching the sun set over the city he'd spent his career keeping safe. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Riverside Tunnel, stronger now than it had ever been. Some structures could be repaired. Others needed to be demolished completely and rebuilt from the foundation up. Declan had chosen demolition. 3 years after the arrests, on a cold February morning, Declan was inspecting a bridge downtown when he saw Ava. She was walking out of a coffee shop, looking older but more confident than the last time he'd seen her. She spotted him across the street and froze. For a moment, they stared at each other across the flow of morning traffic. Eva raised her hand slightly, a tentative wave. Declan looked at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away.